Loaf cake. Take about a pound of risen bread dough, work into it a teacup of butter, 3 eggs beaten, a pound of sugar, a nutmeg grated, and a glass of brandy or wine. A pound of raisins, stoned and chopped, should be added after it is well beaten. Half a pint of cream, slightly warmed, with a tablespoonful of vinegar and a teaspoonful of dissolved salaeratus, should be stirred in just as you are ready to bake it. Also sifted flour enough to make it the proper consistency. Bake in a large pan, in a brick oven or stove, and it will require an hour and a quarter. Queen cake. Mix a pound of dried flour, the same of sifted sugar, and currants. Wash a pound of butter, add rose water, beat it well, a teacup of cream, then mix with it 8 eggs, yolks and whites beaten separately. Add the dry ingredients by degree. Beat the whole an hour. Bake in little tins or saucers, filling only half. Rich jumbles. Rub a pound of butter into a pound and a quarter of flour. Beat 4 eggs with a pound and a quarter of sugar. When very light, mix with them the butter and flour. Mix in a glass of rose water and a nutmeg. Roll them in rings and bake them slowly. Sift powdered sugar over after they are baked. Common jumbles. Take a pound of flour, a half a pound of butter, and 3/4 of sugar, 3 eggs, a little nutmeg and rose brandy. Mix the butter and sugar together, add the flour and eggs, mold them in rings, and bake them slowly. Molasses jumbles. Beat 3/4 of a pound of sugar, the same of butter, and 3 eggs together. Stir in half a pint of molasses. Add rose brandy and nutmeg, and enough flour to make a soft dough. Roll it in rings and bake as other jumbles. By the addition of half a pint of molasses and a teaspoonful of salaeratus, you will have a common black cake, which may be baked in 1 large pan. Jumbles for delicate persons. Roll a heaped pint of light brown sugar, and rub in 2 pints of flour, half a pound of butter, and a dessert spoonful of cinnamon. Beat an egg, and mix with it a half a teacup of rich milk, in which a very small lump of salaeratus has been dissolved. Stir all together with a wine glass of rose brandy. Work it well, roll thin, and cut them out. Bake with moderate heat. Cup jumbles. 5 teacups of flour, 3 of sugar, 1 heaped of butter, 1 of sweet cream, 3 eggs, and the peel of 1 lemon, grated, or nutmeg or mace if you like. Roll them thin and bake in a quick oven. Jackson jumbles. 3 teacups of sugar, 1 of butter, 5 of flour, 1 teaspoonful of salaeratus, and a cup of sour cream, and 2 eggs. Bake in a quick oven. Season them with the peel of a fresh lemon grated, and a half wineglass of brandy. Macaroons. Blanch a pound of almonds, beat them in a mortar, and put with them a little rose water to keep them from oiling, the white of an egg, and a large spoonful of flour. Roll a pound of loaf sugar, and beat the whites of 4 eggs. Beat them all together. Shape them on white paper with a spoon, and bake them on tin plates in a slow oven. Let them be quite cold before you remove them from the paper. Naples biscuit. Beat 12 eggs till light. Add to them a pound of dried flour and 1 of powdered sugar. Beat all together till perfectly light. Put in some rose water and nutmeg, and bake it in small shallow pans in a moderately heated oven. New Year cake. Mix together 3 pounds of flour, a pound and a half of sugar, and 3/4 of a pound of butter. Dissolve a teaspoonful of salaeratus in enough new milk to wet the flour. Mix them together, grate in a nutmeg or the peel of a lemon, roll them out, cut them in shapes, and bake. Cider cake. Take a pound and a half of flour, 3/4 of sugar, and a 1/4 pound of butter. Dissolve a teaspoonful of salaeratus in as much cider as will make a soft dough, and bake it in shallow pans. Season it with spice to your taste. Dover cake. 1 pound of flour, 1 of sugar, half a pound of butter, 6 eggs, half a nutmeg, a spoonful of rose brandy. Beat the butter and sugar together, adding the other ingredients, the whites of the eggs beaten separately. Bake as pound cake. Jelly cake. This cake can be made by the sponge, cup, or Dover cake recipe. Have shallow tin pans or plates of the same size. Butter them and pour in the batter so as to be about half an inch thick when baked. They take but a few minutes to bake of a light brown, and as you take them from the oven, put them on a china plate with a layer of jelly between each cake, till you have 4 or 5 layers. Cut the cake in slices before handing it. Currant jelly is to be preferred, but quince will answer, or peach marmalade. Almond cake. 10 eggs, 1 pound of loaf sugar, half a pound of almonds, half a pound of flour, 1 nutmeg. Beat the yolks first, then put in the sugar, beating them very light. Blanch the almonds and pound them in a mortar, with rose water or the juice of a lemon. Add them alternately with the flour, and the whites of the eggs well beaten. If you bake in one large cake, it will require an hour and a half in a slow oven. In small pans it will take less time, and in either case will require watching. Raised plum cake. Take 3 pounds of flour. And mix to it as much new milk as will make a thick batter, and a teacup of yeast. When it is light, beat together a pound of butter, a pound of sugar, and 4 eggs. Mix this in with a pound of raisins, stoned and cut, half a pound of currants, a grated nutmeg, and a glass of rose brandy. Bake it 2 hours. Black cake. Rub a pound and a half of softened butter in 3 pounds of flour. Add a pound of brown sugar rolled fine, a pint of molasses, a tablespoonful of rose brandy, a nutmeg or some mace, 4 eggs well beaten, a pound of raisins stoned and chopped. Mix the whole well, and before baking add a teacup of sour cream with a teaspoonful of soda dissolved in it. Beat it up again, have the pans well buttered, and put in about 3 parts full. This quantity will make about 6 cakes in bread pans. Bake as bread, and if it browns too much, put paper on it. If it seems too stiff, add a little more molasses or cream. It will keep several weeks in cold weather. Buns. Take 1 1/4 pounds of flour, half a pound of butter, and 3/4 pound of sugar, 6 eggs, half a pound of currants, half a nutmeg, a glass of brandy, and a pint of new milk. Mix all well together, and put in half a teacup of yeast. Let it rise, and when light, bake it in shallow pans. Buttermilk cakes. 1 pound of sugar, 1/4 pound of butter, 3 eggs, a teacup of buttermilk, nutmeg or cinnamon to taste. Add as much flour as will make a dough that will roll out. Cut in round cakes and bake with a quick heat. A composition cake. 1 pound of sugar, 1 of flour, half a pound of butter, 6 eggs, 2 1/2 wine glasses of milk, 1 teaspoonful of soda and 1 of tartaric acid. Warm the milk and butter, add the sugar, then the yolks of the eggs beaten light, then the whites and the flour alternately, then the soda to be dissolved in a half wine glass of water. Season with nutmeg, mace, or a little essence of lemon, and add lastly the tartaric acid, dissolved in half a wine glass of water. Bake it 1 hour in an oven, as hot as usual for bread. When brown at top, cover it with paper. A pound of dried currants is an agreeable addition. Ginger cupcake. 3 cups of flour, 1 of sugar, 1 of molasses, 1 of butter, a tablespoonful of ginger, 1 teaspoonful of saleratus, and 3 eggs. Bake in pans. A pound of stoned and chopped raisins is an improvement. Light gingerbread. Take 3 cups of molasses, 5 of flour, 1 of sugar, 3 eggs, and a teaspoonful of saleratus, dissolved in a cup of sour cream. Work the sugar with 1/4 pound of butter. Beat 2 dozen cloves, and put in with 2 tablespoonsful of ginger. Mix all together, and bake in shallow pans or cups. Crisp ginger cake. Take 3 pounds of flour, 1 of sugar, 1 of butter. Mix these together with 3 tablespoons of ginger, some cloves and anise seed, and wet it with molasses. Roll it thin, cut it in shapes, and bake with a quick heat. Gingerbread nuts. Take 1.5 pounds of flour, 3/4 pound of sugar, the same of butter, some cloves and cinnamon pounded fine, and an ounce of ginger. Mix these well together, and make into a stiff dough with molasses. Roll it thin, and cut it in small cakes. Crullers. Take 2 pounds of flour, 3/4 pound of sugar, half a pound of butter, 6 eggs, and some mace or nutmeg. Mix the flour, sugar, and butter together, and wet it with the eggs. If too stiff, put in some cream. Roll the dough thin, cut it in shapes, and fry them in boiling lard. The more lard there is, the less they will soak it up. Rusk. Take 1 quart of milk, a teacup of cream, half a pound of lard, 1/4 pound of butter, a spoonful of salt, and boil them together. Beat well 2 eggs with a pound of sugar, and pour the boiling milk on them gradually, stirring all the time. When nearly cold, add a teacup of yeast and flour sufficient to make a stiff batter. When quite